So here's the thing. If you sleep 7 or 8 hours every night, you don't drink caffeine too late, you're not scrolling on your phone all night, but you still wake up tired, not just groggy, but like actually tired. That heavy, foggy feeling that sticks around for hours. And if that keeps happening, even when your sleep schedule's on point, even when you've bought some fancy pillows, blackout curtains, like the whole setup, that's when I started thinking, what if the problem isn't your routine, but your mouth? And it sounds a bit weird, I know, but I'm a dentist and I've been recently looking into the research of how oral health might be affecting things like fatigue and recovery. And what I found is actually pretty interesting because it makes a lot of sense once you understand it. And because your mouth isn't for just for chewing and talking, it's influencing things like breathing, your airway, your ability to get deep, restful sleep without you even realizing it. So in this video, I want to show you how your mouth might be affecting your sleep and what to look out for if you're doing everything right, but still waking up tired. Let's get into it. All right, so let's start with something really simple. The way the air moves through your body while you sleep affects deeply how your brain can rest. And what most people never think about is how the air moves through your nose, through your mouth. It sounds small, but it makes a much bigger difference than you'd expect. And when you breathe through your nose, the air goes through like this whole filtration system. So it's warmed, it's humidified, it's cleaned before it hits your lungs. And that helps with oxygen balance. It keeps nitric oxide production healthy, and it helps switch your nervous system to that rest and recover mode, which is the mode that your brain needs to reach deep sleep. But when you breathe through your mouth, especially while you're asleep, you lose all of that. The air is colder, drier, less filtered, and that triggers a kind of a low level stress response in your body even if you stay asleep. Actually, there was a study out of Japan that looked at this. So they had people with snoring issues gently tape their mouths shut at night. Nothing extreme, but just enough to keep the lips sealed and encourage nasal breathing. And what happened was something interesting. So the snoring dropped, and more importantly, they felt more rested the next day. The same number of hours, better recovery. So it wasn't about how long they slept, but it was about how they breathed while sleeping. Now, here's where it gets deeper. Because if your mouth is open while you sleep, even just a little, you're more likely to get these small oxygen dips. Not like full blown apneas, but enough to interrupt your deep sleep cycles like the REM or the slow wave sleep. And you won't necessarily wake up from it, but your body knows. And you'll feel it the next morning. And also get this, anthropologists have found modern humans, like us, tend to have narrower jaws compared to people just a few hundred years ago. So our ancestors, they had wider jaws, more space for teeth, better airways, but with us, we have more crowded teeth, smaller jaws, and more likely to mouth breathe. And one of the theories is partly due to our diets, softer foods, less chewing, which shapes the face and the mouth differently as we grow. And here's the catch. Mouth breathing works. It gets the air in, but at an extra cost. The extra airflow dries out your mouth, which messes with your saliva. And saliva isn't just moisture. It's part of your immune system. And one study even showed this. With just 3 days of mouth breathing, the oral bacteria balance changed. So good bacteria dropped off, inflammatory strains increased, acidity rose, and saliva dropped. And that basically starts a cycle because your body becomes inflamed, your sleep becomes shallower, and you wake up feeling wrecked even after a full night's sleep. And that's why people wake up with things like dry mouth, a coated tongue, sore throat, cracked lips, even a dull headache. And these aren't random. So they're often the signs of disrupted airflow or shallow sleep, even if you technically stayed asleep for 8 hours. And to be clear, this doesn't mean that you have sleep apnea or medical disorder, but it's a pattern, a physiological loop that quietly chips away at your recovery. And here's what nobody talks about. You can't feel oxygen dips. You can't feel your REM phase, sleep getting interrupted. You just wake up tired and you don't know why. So, how do you actually start breaking that cycle? It begins with something really simple and basic, something most people completely overlook, and that's keeping your mouth from drying out. Because when your mouth stays moist, your tongue sits naturally at the right position. Your lips are more likely to stay sealed, and your body shifts into that calm nose breathing mode it needs to recover properly. And I'll go deeper into how that all works and how to reset that in another video. But before we get there, there's something important you need to understand because the whole issue isn't just about the airflow or breathing patterns. There's a deeper layer happening inside the mouth itself, and that's inflammation. And most people think inflammation is just like a sore spot or swollen gums, but the kind we're talking about here is quiet, and it can have a much bigger impact than you may realize. All right, so let's make this real. If you've been sleeping enough but still feel tired when you wake up, there are three things I want you to check out for tonight before bed or first thing when you wake up in the morning. And these aren't diagnoses, but they're clues. And when they show up together, they can point onto something deeper on how your mouth is functioning during sleep. And sign number one is you wake up with a dry mouth. Not just a bit thirsty, I mean that sticky, dry feeling where you need water right away. That usually means that your lips were open all night while you slept and that your body was mouth breathing instead of using the nose. And that alone can mess with your sleep quality, especially during the deep restorative stages. And it also tells you that the saliva flow has dropped overnight, and saliva, as I mentioned, isn't just moisture. It's part of your immune defense, and it helps protect enamel, and it's part of the pH or the stability of the pH level of the mouth. So when saliva goes down, the whole environment in your mouth shifts quietly but consistently. And sign number two is your tongue looks white or coated. Now, a little bit of coating is normal, but if it's thick or looks yellowish or gray, that means there's a sign of an imbalance. It often means that your saliva level was low, oxygen levels in your mouth were reduced, or the pH shifted more towards being acidic, often from mouth breathing or inflammation. And it's not just a cosmetic thing. The coating actually affects your oral microbiome. It can release sulfur compounds that irritate tissues and signal your immune system to stay alert even while you are asleep. Some people try to scrape it off, but if it keeps coming back every morning, that's your body telling you that there's something off. And sign number three is your gums bleed when you brush or floss. And this one's easy to ignore because people will just say, oh, I haven't flossed in a while, or my toothbrush bristles are hard. But even mild bleeding means that there's some inflammation happening, usually from bacteria building up in low oxygen areas of the mouth. And if that inflammation is there while you're sleeping, it doesn't just stay local, it can leak into your bloodstream. And even back in the early 2000s, researchers started to notice something strange. And people with gum inflammation, even mild gum inflammation, were showing signs of heart problems, not because of the pain, but because of the chronic low-grade inflammation that starts in the mouth and spreads silently. And that same inflammation, it can subtly disrupt your sleep quality by activating stress pathways in your body, even if you don't wake up. So let's put that together. You wake up with a dry mouth, you notice a coated tongue, and your gums bleed a little when you brush or floss. If these three signs are showing up again and again, your mouth might be interfering with how your body rests. And thank you for watching.